The great chamber of the Galactic Council glowed with the blue shimmer of projected starlight. Representatives of 200 species gathered in a vast circle, each encased in an atmospheric pod suited for their biology. Conversations rippled like electric waves through the air. At the center stood an aged veteran, his uniform worn, his scars deep. He was called Orlan by his people, a species once known for conquest, now reduced to quiet traders. His voice carried the rasp of old wars. "They are not what you believe," Orlan said slowly, his breath fogging the transparent wall of his pod. "You think them fragile. You think them naive. But I tell you, no war has ever truly broken them." Laughter rolled across the hall. One delegate, a being of crystalline form, let out a piercing chime that meant amusement. Another, covered in feathered scales, mocked with clicking sounds that echoed off the ceiling. The council speaker, tall and shimmering with refracted light, waved a limb for silence. "Veteran Orlan," the speaker said, "your reports about this species, these humans, conflict with every scan we have. Their fleets are small, their colonies few. Their biology is soft, their lifespan brief. You speak of them as if they are legends." Orlan's gaze drifted to the floating hologram of Earth projected before them. "Legends," he whispered. "Yes, that is what they become after every war they survive. You have not fought them. You have not seen what they become when all hope is lost." The chamber filled again with dismissive murmurs. To the council, humanity was an insignificant species from a small world at the edge of mapped space. Their technology lagged behind major powers, their presence barely noted. But Orlan had fought in the Karun Rebellion, where humans had arrived late and still changed the outcome. He had seen their ships descend in silence, had watched them rebuild cities others had leveled. He had seen something in their eyes, something unrecorded in any galactic archive. "They will come," Orlan said, his voice trembling not from fear but from memory. "And when they come, you will remember my words." The speaker leaned forward. "And what will they come for, old soldier?" Orlan looked up at the hologram again. "For those who thought them weak." The council erupted in laughter once more. Years passed. The Outer Rim War began with an unprovoked strike. A coalition of species desperate for resources invaded the Terran expansion zone. Dozens of human colonies fell in a month. The council watched with distant interest, seeing the humans plead for diplomatic aid that never came. The council considered intervention until reports arrived that human fleets had been destroyed near the Varan Belt. That was enough for them. They marked the conflict as concluded and moved on. But Orlan did not. He sat in silence within his small home on the edge of council space, watching the stars beyond his window. The news spoke of human surrender, of mass evacuations, of refugees fleeing into the void. Yet he knew that silence was not surrender. He remembered another silence, the calm before the human counteroffensive centuries ago. He remembered the same patterns, the same deceptive quiet. He whispered to himself, "They are not gone. They are waiting." 6 months later, a lone scout ship arrived near the council's capital world. Its transmissions were garbled, half destroyed. The captain's last words, however, were clear. "They're back." The council gathered in emergency session. Panic buzzed through the chamber. Dozens of species spoke at once. "Back? Who? What fleet?" The Rim Coalition should have crushed them. Then a projection filled the chamber. It showed a line of ships emerging from hyperspace near the Charis Nebula. They bore no colors, no insignia. Their hulls were dark, made of layered composites unknown to any council database. "Unidentified," the speaker said. "Can anyone confirm origin?" The room fell silent. Then Orlan stepped forward from the observer's gallery. "I can," he said quietly. "Those are human warships," the speaker turned sharply. "Impossible." Their fleet was annihilated. Orlan shook his head. "They build in silence. They do not boast. They fight when the world believes they cannot." The projection zoomed in on one of the ships. It was enormous, its hull etched with markings not of pride but of memory. Names, dates, symbols of fallen colonies. "They are not just returning," Orlan said. "They are coming to end this." In the following days, transmissions flooded in from across the rim. The coalition fleets that had once boasted of human defeat were vanishing. Entire sectors fell silent. No wreckage was found, only empty space and distorted signals. The council tried to contact the human government, but there was no reply. No messages, no demands, only silence and the growing fear that spread like a sickness through the stars. Then the Council's own fleets were approached. Reports described human ships moving through hyperspace in perfect formation. Each jump precise, each maneuver without error. They did not respond to hails. They did not broadcast warnings. They appeared, acted, and vanished again. When one fleet commander, a proud general from the Kral Dominion, ordered an attack, his entire armada disappeared within hours. Later scans showed the space there twisted by residual energy unlike any known weapon. Quantum displacement, one scientist guessed. Matter disassembled at the atomic level. But Orlan knew better. Retribution, he said. 1 week later, the humans arrived at the edge of Council territory. The speaker convened an emergency assembly. All members attended, even those who rarely left their homeworlds. Fear had a way of uniting them. Veteran Orlan, the speaker began. You seem to understand this threat better than most. Tell us, what do they want? Orlan looked across the trembling assembly. They want what you denied them. Respect, peace, dignity. But now it is too late to offer it in words. The speaker's light dimmed. You mean to say they will not negotiate? They have already decided, Orlan said. They warned you once. You mocked them. You mocked me. A silence heavier than gravity filled the room. Outside, the sky burned. The first human ships appeared above the Council's capital world, vast silhouettes against the stars. The planetary defense grid activated automatically, filling the sky with beams of light, but the humans did not fire back. Instead, they released smaller crafts, sleek, dark, moving faster than the Council sensors could track. They did not attack cities or ports. They struck communications hubs, disabling command centers with precision. They made it impossible for the Council to speak, to coordinate, to control. They're dismantling us without blood, whispered one aide. The speaker ordered full surrender signals transmitted, but no acknowledgement came. In the chaos, Orlan stood on the observation deck, watching the human fleet descend in silent formation. He whispered, "This is their way. They end wars not by shouting but by silence." When the humans finally transmitted a message, it was not a threat. It was a recording. A voice spoke calmly, without anger. "We asked for peace. You chose silence. We pleaded for help. You turned away. We were called weak. Yet here we stand, not to destroy but to remind. Never again shall any world mock the fallen." The message ended. Then the ships began releasing supplies, food, medicine, reconstruction drones. The Council members were stunned. No invasion followed, no occupation. The humans helped rebuild the very systems that had ignored their suffering, and when the work was done, they left. No demand for tribute, no declaration of empire. They simply turned their ships toward the dark and vanished once more into hyperspace. Months later, Orlan stood before the same Council chamber. The speaker's tone was subdued, respectful. "Veteran Orlan," the speaker said, "we owe you an apology. You warned us, and we did not listen." Orlan bowed his head. "Apologies are for the living. Remember them instead. Learn from them. Because they will not warn twice." He turned toward the window where Earth's distant light shimmered faintly among the stars. "You call them unpredictable," Orlan continued. "But that is because you measure them by logic, not by spirit. They fight not for conquest, but for meaning. When they lose everything, they rebuild from dust. When they are broken, they stand again. That is what you never understood." The speaker lowered their head. "Do you believe they will return?" Orlan smiled faintly. "They never left. They just walk among the stars now, watching." Far beyond Council space, the human fleet drifted silently in the dark. The war was over, yet their mission continued. On the flagship's bridge, officers observed the last transmission from the Council, the apology broadcast across the network. None spoke. They did not celebrate. They simply marked it in their records, one more step toward the fragile peace they always hoped for. Below decks, engineers checked systems, medics treated refugees, and scientists planned the next restoration effort. They moved with quiet precision, their actions speaking louder than any threat ever could. For humanity had learned long ago that true victory was not in domination but in survival, and in reminding the galaxy what survival meant. The Council rebuilt slowly, Every world it governed began to change. They no longer saw humanity as primitive or weak. Instead, they saw them as something terrifying and noble, a species that could be both destroyer and healer, avenger and savior. In the archives, Orlan's words were preserved. Cadets read them during military training. Diplomats quoted them during peace talks. "Beware those who fight for their home," one line read, "for they do not fight to win. They fight to end the need for war." Generations passed, but the story of humanity remained.